Senate Regulated Industries Committee to order for our final meeting of the year. Some people may have seen where there's a scheduled meeting at 3:30 this afternoon. In the incredibly lucky event that we have finished 28 bills on our calendar by 3:30, we theoretically could meet. It would be too late to pass a bill out that could be considered on our rules calendar this year. But there is one other bill that Senator Mullis has dealing with solar energy that I've promised if we have time we'll give a hearing to. I think that's an unlikely event today, but just to let people know there was some confusion when they saw the Senate schedule. They scheduled us this morning in the event we have any bills that pass out, so they would be eligible for rules calendar consideration today or Monday. I guess really wouldn't be eligible till Monday. So we only have 4 bills left on the agenda that have not been dealt with, and the sponsor of House Bill 76 has requested that it be pulled. The public response to HB 601 has been such that we're not going to go forward with that controversial subject at this late of a time. So that leaves us 2 bills to deal with. House Bill 449 was tabled at our last meeting, and it is eligible to be considered. This is actually an additional version, so I don't know procedural if it needs to be taken off the table since it's different or not, but that would be my preference, to be clear. If anybody on the committee would like to consider that with the new changes, a motion to remove from the table would be in order.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that House Bill 449 be removed from the table.
Mr. Chairman, I second that motion.
All right, we got a motion by Senator Tippins. We got a second by Senator Ginn. If you'll note in your folders, you will see the pink version, LC 364612, which was as passed the House, and you will have the current substitute, LC 364844S, along with a summary from Senate Research. All in favor of the motion to remove this bill from the table? Raise your hand. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Unanimous vote. We'll remove that from the table. And I'll let you present your changes then. Senator Tippins, tell us what you've done in the last couple of days to try to reach a compromise on this issue.
The only difference that I have met with people to try to achieve a compromise. We've changed the bill to change. If you will look on page 8, on line 198, as a utility facility, we have added the word "an underground electronic traffic control device" and an underground electronic traffic management system. This takes out the signs and anything else that may be above ground that's in the general definition of traffic control devices or systems. The other change was made on page 21. We added the same language in the part that I covered the other day that covered the Georgia Department of Transportation. We put in the words underground electronic in front of traffic control devices. That's the only difference. This just makes it clear that any of these systems that are underground is the only thing that's covered under this code section, and it's not the above ground utilities. It's just that those underground. I will say this and I'll reiterate, this is the only utility that's in public right-of-ways today that's not mandated to be located. And if you think about the inconvenience to the public that we come into when we cut these facilities and traffic lights go out, it's a huge amount. I'm sure you're going to ask the question, so I'll go ahead and address it. You know, who's against the bill? Well, the cities and counties are not in favor of it. And surprisingly, the irony to me is that the Georgia Underground Coordinating Council is not in favor of it. This is a can that's been kicked down the road for 25 years. We have an underground protection center. Think about that, protection center for underground utilities. This is the only utility that's not mandated to be located. The cities and the counties locate water, gas, sewer, electric, whatever they have underground, cable, yet they don't want to locate this. I understand they don't want to do it from a cost standpoint. I don't understand why they don't want to do it from a public inconvenience standpoint. We're not asking them to do something that they really should not already be doing. And I mean, to me, it just confounds logic and common sense that we would say we're going to let the law specifically write out underground traffic management control systems when you have such a potential inconvenience to the public. I've been told they've spent 45 hours of committee time of the Georgia Underground Utility Coordinating Council trying to build this bill. And there's 60 people. That's 67 and a half hours of man hours. 67 and a half weeks. That's 2,700 hours. Yet they ignore the elephant in the room that you've still got underground utilities that are not under the protection center. I ask you to pass this bill. You know, it's been kicked down the road for 25 years. You can fix it this morning, or you can kick it down the road for another year. But I think it makes more sense to fix it while we're dealing with this code section that goes to the very heart of public safety and preserving the public's prevention from being inconvenienced. I'd ask you to vote for the LC 364844S.
All right, I have one speaker signed up, Todd Edwards from ACCG. If you'll please come in, Todd, and Representative Smith, come on in the room. I saw you in the hallway. Vance Smith, come in too and participate.
We really didn't want you to. I thought that was the sign.
Now we know why you weren't here. We had the door locked on you. Okay. You can have a seat up here at the table, Representative, and we'll let Mr. Edwards speak to us briefly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Todd Edwards with the Association of County Commissioners of Georgia. It was mentioned before, we have spent considerable hours working with various groups. We respectfully would ask that you not vote in favor of the substitute version, but the original version. We don't plan to kick this issue down the road. What we have done is agreed and are working on a House subcommittee to try to iron out the issues, the details, like we did 15 years ago with water and sewer, to gradually work cities and counties into the system. It's not that we're not locating now. We are. We're just not under the system that's mentioned in the bill with the UPC, with the dues and all that else. Again, we ask that you delay the substitute, vote for the original version, allow us time, and I promise to work in good faith over the interim with the cities, with all the other stakeholders, or directly with y'all, the legislators, to try to find a solution to have traffic control devices and traffic management systems wrapped up under the UPC. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Any questions? All right. Senator Miller?
When you say you want time, you're talking about a year.
Over the summer, and then come back with legislation. That's why we agreed and are participating with the study committee that's been established, or the subcommittee in the House Energy, Utilities, and Telecommunications.
Okay. Thank you.
If the bill doesn't pass, I'm going to encourage you to consider letting the Senate be involved in that committee beforehand, before you get back in this same position where you've got a deal on one half of the building that the other isn't privy to.
I would wholeheartedly agree, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All right. What's the pleasure of the committee? Senator Ginn?
Mr. Chairman, I second Senator Tippin's motion to move the substitute forward.
Okay. He had a motion to remove from the table, and that passed, and now we're in a position for action if needed.
Okay. One of the things.
Appropriate motion would be a motion do pass LC 364844S.
So moved.
Second.
And we got a second, Senator Mullis. Any discussion on that? Representative Smith, we want you to be heard before we take action. I invited you here this morning for that reason.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Well, I hear all the conversation, and I'm telling you that the group that got together in the original bill and came up with the items on that bill, there's a real important section in there, line 595 through 599, that says if they call, request, or locate, they do not get it, and they continue on working, they are not held liable for the damages. I think that's real important. I just think this group that got together and came up with all of these solutions, they didn't forget about signalization. It was one of the main points they talked about, but they found out they couldn't come together, so they put that to the side for that study committee. And yes, we have that study committee is just a subcommittee. The House is not taking up really study committees. They didn't take my study committee up, but they went ahead and appointed a committee of members on Chairman Parsons' committee, Utilities, and it is open. And we've stated that anybody in the Senate can come over and join that study committee, and we would love that and love all the input. So I know there's a motion on the floor, but just respectfully request if we could go to 449, the original bill, as agreed to by the 16 people that got together for 6 months. I certainly would appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Ginn, I recognize you for a question.
Actually, I have a motion if it's appropriate.
We got a motion on the table.
I've got a motion for amendment.
Okay, I recognize you. Anybody have questions for Representative Smith? Okay, I've got a couple of questions for you. I'm going to recognize Senator Harbison.
I have a statement, and really, I'm just sort of torn between trying to between the two positions. I thought we had come to a conclusion regarding the polls that's involved here, but my Representative Smith and I'm really impressed with the fact that these group of people came together and tried to resolve it. And they got these things worked out, and I understand now they're trying to come up with the other part of it. That's really important to my good friend, Senator Tippins. And I want to help in this, but I really see that my county is saying they're opposed to the group that represents my county. They're opposed to it now, and they prefer, apparently, the original bill. So that's my dilemma, and that's my position.
Yes,
so I just want to express that respectfully.
Thank you, Dean. Senator Gooch, you're recognized for a comment, question, whatever on your mind.
Quick question for Representative Smith. I guess you're the only one that may be able to answer it because I think we're about to run out of time. The people on this list are in support of your original bill, but do they all oppose the substitute that's under consideration right now?
I'm going to put it like this. They all are in support, and they sent letters specifically stating 449, but they also consider signalization huge, and they all agreed to put that in they called it study committee. It's a subcommittee.
So if we pass the substitute bill, every county and every city and all these people are going to be opposed to that language. So then it would go back to the House, and you would probably disagree with it, but it doesn't make any sense to me to do that. So.
I can tell you this list was presented to me before the original bill was considered, so I don't know what their position is after these amendments. Senator Tippins, I recognize you for either a comment or a question to Representative Smith.
Comment. I would say anyone who has to dig, any organization in that list who has to actually excavate in right-of-ways is in favor of my amendment. I didn't do a PR campaign on this to try to get everybody to call, but I could ask anyone who digs in the ground in the public right-of-way. They're in favor of this amendment because they realize it's the elephant in the room that has not been addressed, and it's been a problem for 25 years. And you cannot talk a solution to this. It's going to take a definitive answer to get it in law. And when it's a definitive answer in law, it'll come. It's a very simple question. Should it be located? Should it not be located? I believe it should be located for the public safety and to prevent the public's inconvenience.
Senator Ginn?
Mr. Chairman, I have two things I want to do, and since the dean brought it up, I want to make sure I'm clear in what I'm trying to do. When we look, being a former city and county manager, I understand local government. We're not trying to put a burden on local governments. There are some local governments that contract with DOT to do maintenance and run the controls for traffic control devices. And when we talk about traffic control devices, some people think, well, the stop sign's a traffic control device. One of the things that with Senator Tippins' language, he's exempting all of those little small communities and small counties that don't have the ability or the means to contract with DOT and don't contract with DOT. I'm actually in my day job, I'm a member of the Utility Protection Center, and have been working in this industry pretty much my entire career. What this bill will do is get rid of one of the big problems that could be opposed by local government in that, hey, anybody that is paying dues into the Utility Protection Center knows how expensive it can be, but there's a benefit to that. We all know that when a utility line's cut, whether it be a phone line, traffic signal device, whatever, the complications that can be. Gas line could be life or death. So for me, I want to make sure you understand that, and I understand the process here. So the amendment that I want to add to this bill, and the language I want to add to it, is add in section 2A on page 30, very last end of the bill, there, go to the end.
Okay.
This act shall become effective on January 1st, 2022. There's a real reason why I want to do that. I said if we make this bill effective January 1st, 2022, my calendar says that next year the session will start on January 10th. Said we meet every year, said they starting on the second Monday. There's 9 days between that day when we implement this bill and when we move forward. So if we do that, said if there's a big issue, said that we've got some opportunity there to address it real quick in the session. If we will do that implementation, I talked to Senator Tippins, he's in support of it, said this gets the ball moving and it can potentially save traffic accidents that would happen if that traffic control device is taken out of service because of an underground cut. For me, the fact that they were left out of, traffic control devices were left out of this is a shame. Said it's something that we need to address. We're the policymakers for the state of Georgia. This is something that needed to have been done, and by putting that implementation, we're do two things. We don't have that long a window for us to come back and readdress it if there's an issue, and most importantly, local governments can plan, because there's not a local government in the state that is not a member of the Utility Protection Center that is under contract with DOT to maintain traffic control devices in their community. They're already, it may be their water and sewer department, it may be their electric, but those local governments that are doing that work for the maintenance of traffic control devices are already a member of the UPC. Now, it may be this branch over here and this branch over here. In the local government, those two sides got to talk to each other. This gives them time to implement that and do it. So, Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion, and I move.
It's an motion to amend it. Before we put it in the bill, Sean Marie, I don't think this goes at the end of page 30. Would it be a new section on the effective date? If a bill doesn't state an effective date, it's either upon signature of the governor or, you know, or July 1st. I ordinarily see that like at the end of final section 4. Is that the best place for him? Just moving the effective date to January 1st, 2022. Stylistically, where would we put that in this bill?
You would put it prior to section 3.
Prior to section 3? Okay.
And Sean Marie had actually, I communicated with her my intent, so I didn't want to go off half-cocked. But for me, I think it's something that would be important to do, and I would make that motion at this time.
Is there a second for that amendment? Second by Senator Tippins. Any further discussion on the amendment? All in favor? Did you, Representative Smith?
Could I make one comment?
Certainly can, anytime.
Just thinking through this, not having seen the amendment, and having been a county commissioner back in the 80s down in Harris County, if you're going to extend that date to that point in time, would it not make sense to go with the original bill, let them go with the study committee and see if they can't come up with a solution, because we're not implementing this bill on the signature of the governor, and just go ahead and follow that path of the original bill with the study committee that they want, and we'll still be back in session in 9 months.
In response to that, Senator Ginn?
Somebody's got to light this fire and get this ball moving. And for me,
8 o'clock in the morning with props. You go.
Senator Tippins has been very benevolent with what he's doing. It only controls to electronic underground traffic control devices.
Okay.
Very limited in what he's doing, and I applaud him for what that is. And we need to move this forward.
All in favor of the amendment, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All opposed? 2, 3, 4-5, I'm going to break the tie and let that go forward as an amendment. Moves the effective date to January 1st, 2022. All right, now, any further proposed amendments? All right, then the motion, we got a discussion from Senator Brass.
And really probably a question for the author of the substitute, Chairman Tippins. I was on the subcommittee when we introduced this, and my understanding was the issue was that the diggers were being held accountable when they hit these traffic lines. Can you tell me how in the original bill in LC 364612, looking at lines 594 through 599, if they're not being, if they cannot be held accountable, doesn't that address exactly what we said the issue was in the subcommittee? Again, and let me clarify that the issue that, if I remember correctly, what you said the issue was when they dig and they hit the traffic line, then a company like yourself is getting a bill and being held accountable and having to pay damages on hitting that traffic line. So I didn't catch this in subcommittee, but how does 595 through 599 in the original bill, how does that not address your concerns?
I don't have 595. Could you read
Here,
that
I'll
for
show
me?
you. It's the underline there.
As I mentioned in the first presentation, the problem is coordination. I don't know whether you've ever dealt with the county government's trying to get a hold of the proper person to do the locates. The whole idea behind one-call numbers is to be able to call and know that it's being located. I'm sure somebody may raise the issue, say, well, we've got a one-call number for the state DOT, and that's true. But the state DOT is a one-call number for all over Georgia. Everybody digging knows whether they're on the state right-of-way or not. And before they dig, they've got to have a pre-construction conference, and all these issues will be worked out. All the conflicts are worked out in pre-construction conference.
Right.
It's a question of coordination. And, you go back to the Utility Coordinating Council, it should be coordinated. Some of these municipalities and counties only have one person that handles this, and if that person's out for vacation for a week, you don't know whether they have anything in there or not. But if you dig after 48 hours, there's a presumption that there's nothing in there. But still, you dig, and even if you don't have to pay for it, if you got a mile and a half of traffic backing up and people trying to be courteous and get through an intersection without hitting one another, it's a problem. Every one of us is set in those kind of positions. It needs to be a mandate that these things are located, and there's a structure under which it is, and it should be for underground protection. And that's all I'm trying to do, is protect the public's interest. That's pure and simple.
Not sure we answered the question.
All right, so we're in the posture of voting for HB 449 by committee substitute. All in favor, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. Got 5 votes by my count, all opposed. 1, 2, 3, 4 opposed. It passes 5-4. That will move on to the Rules Committee for consideration as to whether or not our chairman is interested in putting it on the calendar. All right, House Bill 76, the author has withdrawn his request for that hearing, so I've now got just a few minutes for House Bill 480, Representative Washburn. With this bill, we will have heard every bill assigned to this committee this year that the author has requested a hearing. Hadn't passed them all, but I want to compliment the committee. Unbelievable attendance all year long. Very, very few absences from any meeting. I want to thank all of you for having been such diligent members and paying attention to these relatively, well, not even relatively, these very complex issues. Representative, if you would please describe your bill, House Bill 480. It's all in our folders. It's your last bill in there. Again, it's the pink sheet. As passed the House, there is no committee substitute. House Bill 480 is LC 364642.
Mr. Chairman, thank you so much for letting me present this bill. Members of the committee, this bill has to do with adding registered interior designers to the lien law. I think it's important that we make a difference here between registered interior designers and interior decorators, with no disrespect to interior decorators. A registered interior designer must have an approved 4-year college degree in either interior design or architecture, and 2 years of work experience under another registered interior designer. What these people do involves, the best example is large office space where they come in, design moving of walls, the basic layout, and the key word is design and not decorate. This bill is needed to level the playing field. They are in the industry with architects, engineers, et cetera, that all work together to do this design work. They have their seal on the plans they submit. Interior designers are the only registered design professionals that are not covered by the lien law. And so we are proposing this.
What are those other design professionals?
That are architects, I guess engineers and surveyors to an extent, but architects in particular.
Okay.
Now, these registered interior designers they do not obtain building permits. They are not in the construction business. They're in the design business. I should point out that currently 23 states contain lien law that includes them. And so we believe it's a fair thing to do to give them the right to be able to be added to the lien law. I know you're short of time, we do have somebody on standby, Mr. John Guest, who is a registered interior designer, who could take 2 minutes to give you additional information if you need it. But I would be available for any questions and certainly ask for your favorable consideration on this.
Are there any questions of the author from committee members? All right, I got 2. Then I'm going to recognize Pro Tem for a question.
I apologize if you have questions. I was going to say at appropriate time, I'd be glad to make a motion.
All right, we got questions. Senator Kennedy, and we got 1 speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Representative. Good to see you.
Good morning, Senator.
So, and I think you clarified who this applies to, and made the distinction between interior designers and interior decorators.
That's correct.
What, in the professional world, the licensing world, how is that distinction made? The purpose of the question is it that an interior decorator could really say they're an interior designer and avail themselves of the statute?
Registered interior designers are regulated through the Secretary of State by the Georgia Board of Architects and Interior Designers. It's my understanding an interior decorator becomes an interior decorator by stating that the person is one. And in this case, there is a process of going through licensure and being registered as part of that registration.
Other questions by committee members? All right, then let me call in Mr. John Guest by Zoom. Are we able to hook him up there? This is the only speaker. We'll get you.
Yes, sir.
Morning, Mr. Guest.
Good morning, sir.
Tell us what your views are on House Bill 480.
Well, I'm personally supporting it. We thought we were covered for years under the lien law and found out the hard way that we were not. And in my particular firm, it cost me $100,000 on one project. But what it would do, of course, is to cut down on the tremendous expense of going through litigation to resolve issues on projects. Now, as far as the qualifications, I think Representative Washburn did a good job in terms of talking about the added education in architecture or interior design to become a registered interior designer, and the work that they have to do in terms of an internship and then passing a national examination. it is a matter of registration gives the public confidence that the person knows something about life safety issues and means of egress and fire protection that they can trust.
Is it a licensed position, an interior designer? Does that require licensing from anybody?
I am not an attorney, and I do not know the difference between a license and a registration.
Okay.
It does require registration with the Georgia State Board of Architects and Interior Designers,
All right. And let me
just
ask
like
you,
an architect does.
what type of educational background is required before you can register?
It requires a 4-year minimum education in architecture or interior design, and then 2 years of internship under an interior designer or an architect. And it requires passage of the national examination, which is the NCIDQ, like the architects have the architectural record exam, or ARE.
All right, so back to your problem where you lost $100,000. That was because whoever hired you refused to pay for some reason?
That is correct.
Okay. So you would have had the remedy to either require payment up front or along the way, or else to file a lawsuit against whoever retained your services to collect your bill?
Correct.
And this would give you more leverage because you can attach a lien to the title and prevent them from selling or borrowing money against the property until they pay you off.
That's absolutely correct.
What if there's a dispute? What if the customer says they didn't like your services or that was inadequately done or whatever? You still able to lock down their title to their property with the lien if this bill passes?
No more so than an architect would be.
Okay.
This is designed not to expand the bill at all, but just to cover interior designers when their practices overlap that of architecture or engineering.
Okay. Any questions? Did I cut you off? Are you through? We're kind of speeding through. Any other committee members have questions for Mr. Guest? All right. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us this morning. Early hour.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. Okay. What's the pleasure of the committee? It's 8:35. There's a motion to pass, and there's by the pro tem, a second by the banking chairman. Any discussion on the motion? All right. All in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed, like sign? All right, passes unanimously. Gentlemen, in light of the fact that the other bills authors are not pushing them at this time, and we are now late to our caucus meeting, with 28 bills to discuss, so we'll be educated what we're talking about this morning, and I'm sure our minority caucus members have a similar meeting where you'll get educated. We are now adjourned. Thank you, Representative. Who would you like to carry this bill in the
Senator Anderson.
In the event it gets off the rules calendar?
Senator Anderson.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. We are adjourned. Do I get to hit your hammer, Chairman Mullis? Can I use your gavel to adjourn us? Been wanting to do that all year.